All right, everybody, to all my replay viewers that are watching this as an individual clip after it's been live for my post-game segment, happy to have you in here. Sadly, the Mets faltered in their latest game to kick off their series against the Seattle Mariners by a final score of 6-0, but there's any good that came out of that, at least it helps David Stearns and the Mets make their bullpen decisions, because as we know, the latest updates in Mets land have a lot to do with their bullpen configuration, in which by time you watch this, the Mets may have already made an announcement or are going to soon with activating Garrett. And I actually got to jump right back in here for a second to cut away, because I'm recording this 2:01 a.m. Eastern. I kid you not, as soon as I hit the end video and end live button for this pre-recorded segment here, we got the news from Tim Britton at 1:40 a.m. of The Athletic on the beat there for the Mets, stating the following: Garrett will in fact be activated this Saturday in Game 2 of a 3-game set against the Mariners, and as a corresponding move, Alex Young's southpaw option, this bullpen who pitched the scoreless outing for the Mets against these same Mariners where they lost 6-0, has been sent down as a corresponding move over fellow veteran southpaw option, the bullpen, and Danny Young. Danny Young, who's pitched very well as of late in this Mets bullpen, so has Alex Young, but Danny has stood out more so as of late, especially with that beautiful slider that's worked so well in his favor, no matter if it's against righties or lefties, or that we have seen. The case of Young, especially a lefty-lefty option, makes sense, and the other Young and Alex sent down, but this does not waver, nor does it change anything. It goes directly in line with what was expected with these guys having minor league options. And now let's hop right back in the remainder of this video as I explain exactly why Adam Ottavino's time in Queens is surely coming to an end at this current rate. Back from the injured list, as we know, Garrett, who posted right around a 3.6 ERA this season, roughly a 14 K per nine to a north of a 5 walks per nine. Garrett, who was working that splitty that we saw and that slider right, was a thing of beauty, but that four-seam fastball, not so much. Working way too much leading up to his elbow inflammation, his IL stint leading into the All-Star break. Again, he had a lot of things not going in his favor, with being utilized on back-to-back days a lot, would end when Diaz's 10-game suspension earlier this season. Garrett, who's expected numbers are better than you think, with just over a 3 ERA this season, is absolutely going to be a weapon in this Mets bullpen that they're going to continue to consider. But with Sean Reed-Foley nipping out of the heels to return to this bullpen in the coming days, again, for Adam Ottavino, who knows that there's uncertainty with his role and his future with the Mets, he has advocated against parting ways with him. He spoke to Mike Puma on the New York Post recently, stating how it would be foolish and how he understands why he's no longer in that true setup role. He's been pushed to now lower leverage situations versus higher leverage. Adam Ottavino, who pitched a scoreless inning for the Mets yesterday at the time of recording this, however, didn't pitch a clean, had a couple base runners get on base, but got out of his own mess. Now he adopts a mess that started from Jose Quintana, but again, Jose was not pitching terribly whatsoever. Adam doesn't do himself any favors that we see here against the Seattle Mariners. And mind you, this is the same Adam Ottavino that apparently, according to latest reports, swayed the Mets enough to say, okay, let's keep Adam Ottavino, let's just have him low leverage, because David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza were apparently impressed with Adam Ottavino's ability to showcase all of his advanced information and really explain how, if you utilize me in these situations, I am going to have success, I'm going to thrive. One thing that Adam Ottavino has not thrived with yet again this season, this has been a commonality with him over the past year and a half, has been pitching on back-to-back days. Adam Ottavino in 2023 was horrendous in back-to-back outings, especially with Edwin Diaz not in the bullpen all year long. That really hurt Adam from the beginning of the start there in 2023. Fast forward to 2024, Adam Ottavino has a 7+ ERA this season pitching back-to-back days. Carlos Mendoza knows this. David Stearns knows this. So, why would the Mets have Adam Ottavino pitch in this outing? Because they want to put him to the test. And what the test was an unfortunate reality that even against a depleted lineup, a lesser lineup in the Mariners, Adam Ottavino could not get the job done. Mind you, Adam came in with just 2 outs, so he needed 1 out, just 1 out. There is a runner at first, that being in Rivas with his 180 batting average to give the Mariners a 4-0 lead at that point off of Quintana opposite field, sadly. Rivas promptly still second base, because you know that if you're a base runner at first against Adam Ottavino, you might as well walk to second base because it's that easy to steal a bag. Then he goes on and steals another bag because Victor Robles, the former national turned Mariner, gets on with a walk. Yes, that Victor Robles, who has had a far from great eye at the zone up until recent now with the Mariners, funny enough. 2 runners get on base and they both steal a bag, so 2 runners in scoring position with 2 out, all because of Adam Ottavino not knowing how to get out of his own mess. So all you need was was one out in this situation, and Adam couldn't give it without it hurting the Mets plenty. Randy Arozarena, who has been a strikeout machine this year, he has walked from Adam Ottavino. Then we see a two-run single by Cal Riley gives the Mariners a 6-0 lead. Thankfully, the final out from Justin Turner, the former Met, in a groundout would end it, but Adam Ottavino, who now has a 4.45 ERA this season, missed me with the nonsense that, oh, Adam Ottavino's passed, how many outings? His past 7 games. His past 7 games have been a 1.5 or so ERA. His past 30 outings have been right around a 3 ERA. How long are we going to continue to ignore the context of this? The exact reason why Adam Ottavino is now appears likely done with the Mets in the coming days, if not the next week or so, is because of this latest example of a no-show outing from Adam once again. Pitch was looking flat, not able to locate the zone. Got squeezed with probably at least one pitch, but again, it wasn't in the zone. It backed up there on the slider and didn't touch a zone there. That was the walk to Randy Arozarena. Adam Ottavino is far from reliable. For the many times that, he didn't give up a run, it's because he's been bailed out because he only pitched, say, 0.2 innings because he also allowed some guys get on base and he needed to be saved by another reliever. Or maybe he did come in and finally get out of his own mess, but again, it was far from comfortable. It was far from easy. Adam, who isn't getting any younger, is the same Ottavino who asked David Stearns for a restructured contract heading into this past offseason. Stearns said no, let him walk. Adam, the New York native, almost 40, got on set with SNY, said, you know what, maybe this will help advocate my chance to stay with the Mets, and I'll say it myself, I want to stay with the Mets. So he signs for a lesser deal on AAV that we saw that I actually did a reaction video at a Knicks versus Miami Heat game in January there at Madison Square Garden. That was a lot of fun. Sadly, that was the beginning of the end for the Knicks with Julius Randle and OG going down that game. If you know, you know. Yes, we were all heartbroken at the same time. Point is, Adam Ottavino, far from reliable. The baseball savant numbers are pretty. Yes, they are. But let's, again, understand the context here. He has not been reliable. With Garrett coming back, with Sean Reed-Foley nipping out of the heels with his 1.6 ERA in 22 innings this season, with 10 K per 9, and again, a high walks per 9 to around 5 or so that needs to come down. Sean, though, is a guy I'm taking every day of the week, especially if I need him on back-to-back days. Sean Reed-Foley is the guy that you can throw in both low and high leverage situations. Is he going to be sharp every time out there? No, but he, again, has been a more reliable and a more consistent option this year than anything that Adam Ottavino has given you, even at his absolute best for the most part. Then you add in Danil Nunez, right? Danil Nunez, who finally starting to throw. It looks like that we could see him finally starting to throw and facing live batters sooner rather than later in the coming days. So be on the lookout for the latest updates there. Sean Reed-Foley, who's looked fine in his rehab, will be back with the Mets again in the coming days. And we know that the Mets need bullpen spots. They will be adding at least one more pitcher over the next couple of weeks once the rosters expand. But in the meantime, in the interim, they need to make key bullpen decisions. While I do believe one of Danny Young or Mr. Alex Young will be the first man cut in this bullpen, again, it feels like a ticking time bomb for Adam Ottavino and his tenure here with the Mets, because, again, in a key close game where, yes, I understand it was already 4-0, and maybe the Mets were not going to have anything regardless, it does not help the Mets when you do us no favors. All we needed was one out, not 2 base runners to not only be on base then and steal bags or get themselves in scoring position, but then to walk the bases loaded in that situation with Randy Arozarena and then giving up a hit to Cal Riley. It was a recipe for disaster. Adam Ottavino, again, I wish you well. I have no ill will against you. You seem like a great guy. I love your personality. I love you walking out to Kid Cudi the way that you do there at Citi Field. But I'm sorry to tell you, I think your time in Queens is coming to an end, because you're not doing yourself any favors, nor are you doing the Mets and this bullpen any favors, and you yourself are the first to know exactly that. So that is the latest big updates there on the Mets bullpen, everybody. And that isn't all the updates that we have, because we have a couple more that I gotta share with each and every one of you right now, and they are the following. And they start with Starling Marte. Marte, who hit a home run there, getting the start in right field that we saw for Port St. Lucie. Marte continues to look fantastic in his rehab. He's ramping up so well and so quick, according to Carlos Mendoza, that he will now be with the Rummel Ponies next before we know it, and he will be playing in at least 7-8 innings. The legs are feeling good. He's feeling fresh, Mendoza said himself. So everything is aligning for, yes, Starling Marte to be activated and be with the Mets back again this upcoming week. Do not be shocked if Marte is activated by the Mets by mid to late next week. If not sooner, Marte will return and will hopefully be with the Mets, especially for, again, their big road trip against the Padres, against the Diamondbacks, that final West Coast trip, their second one here in the month of August. Marte, barring any changes, fingers, knocking on wood, we'll be a part of it, and we'll be with the Mets in the coming days. Big news there. We need Marte in that bat back in this lineup. Even though the defense is far from brilliant, that offense has been huge. Marte in clutch situations this year has been electric. Hitting in high leverage, he's had around a 400 batting average with 1,000 OPS. 2-out hitting, especially runners in scoring position, 300 average. Again, 850 or so OPS. Tremendous numbers for Starling Marte when you need him most, and that's why the Mets certainly need him back in this lineup with the way that their offense has been far from consistent the past month plus of baseball, or really just the past month, I should say, has not treated the Mets nearly as well as you'd hope here, especially post-trade deadline now the past 10 days. Not so ideal here in Mets land on the consistency front, at least, especially with playing the lesser teams entering then this very tough matchup against the Mariners. So that's the latest there on Starling Marte, everybody. So now let's get into some very encouraging news for Mr. Christian Scott. Scott, thankfully, has no pain. There is no issues with that elbow. So Christian Scott, as we know, who was initially shut down for 2 weeks with that, we saw basically the partially torn UCL inflammation there, not looking good. This is something that he's tried to avoid surgery with a year ago with the Mets. They avoided then, and it looks like that they are currently avoiding it now. Thankfully, there is no symptoms. There's no pain, so that's a good sign for Christian Scott. The next steps that we're going to see now is how does he look once he finally starts to strengthen that arm and get some more action going. So again, we're going to finally start to see a slow but surely a proper ramp up for Christian Scott, and once that begins, once he's starting to face live batters after proper BP, if he's feeling good, he will ramp up from there, begin rehab, and the Mets will get Scott back at some point this season. But again, will that be before the end of the year? It's all indicative on how slow or how fast he's feeling good and ramping up there in the minor leagues. So that's the latest on Christian Scott, the latest on Starling Marte, the latest on the Mets bullpen. And before I let you all go here, let me leave you with the latest on Brandon Sproat, because we've talked greatly about Brandon Sproat, Mets top pitching prospect, already a top 5 pitching prospect in the game. Went all the way from Port St. Lucie to AAA, where he made his AAA debut the past day at the time of recording this. And his debut was far from dominant for Brandon Sproat, who again touches 100 with that lively fastball. A lot of Mets fans already calling him a bust because, of course, they are going to do that with the casuals that they are. Brandon Sproat, who will inevitably be with the Mets, if not by the end of the season, then absolutely a guaranteed slam dunk of a guarantee next season with them, potentially as a huge force in this rotation. Brandon Sproat, let's do a complete deep dive on his outing there in AAA Syracuse. What looked right, what looked wrong, and what can Mets fans look at heading into his next start there, where we finally have some StatCast data. And how I'm going to relay this with you all is the following, folks. We are going to go down here. Let me make sure that this is all set. We're going to put this up here right now. Let's get the window capture going. Let's go ahead and show this. There we go. Now let's go ahead and show this, and we got ourselves the Brandon Sproat thread. So if you guys don't know already, I have a secondary Twitter account, a large one with, you know, roughly 64,000 followers there at the WardyNYM. Make sure to follow on Twitter as I post, you know, frequently there every day, more than my personal account now, but I'm posting on both, so make sure to follow both. And Isaac Groffman, our pitching contributor on the channel, who's fantastic with doing in-depth analysis on all Mets pitchers in the farm and currently on the roster, as we do every single day here, has this to say about what we learned from Brandon Sproat's first AAA start. And as we see here, we're going to click the thread and get into all the key deep dive numbers, everything that Brandon Sproat had to offer. As we see, Brandon Sproat was greeted brutally at the AAA level last night, gave up 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts on 88 pitches, and 4.2 innings. And despite the ugly line, there are important takeaways from the start, to say the least. And these statistics are presented thanks to TJ Stats on Twitter. Again, a lot of advanced information here for you guys to check out, especially on the, you know, vertical break, on the horizontal break, on the spin rate, and, you know, the VAA, all the key details on his pitches there that you see, from the sinker, the slider, the cutter, the four seam, the changeup, and the curveball, all of that 5-pitch mix that he has to offer. And let's start with the fastballs. StatCast data confirmed that Sproat throws 2 different fastballs, a 4-seam and a sinker. His 4-seam shape is not ideal currently. It really just doesn't have anything to be excited about. It honestly reminds me a little bit of Shintaro Fujinami, in the sense of, again, you have a lively fastball, but the shape is flat. It doesn't do a lot for you, and that's why it could be a problem at the MLB level. But thankfully for Sproat, who's only 22 years of age, first year year of any professional level of baseball, I think he's going to be in good hands here. You know, his four-seam fastball is not ideal in the shape, but he throws that at 100. You know, it gates a lot of those worries for Isaac and for myself too. But again, once he hits that MLB level, he will absolutely have some rude awakenings for sure there, should he not make proper adjustments, which I'm sure he will in the coming years with the shape of his fastball. You know, on the breakers, when Sproat gave up the 6 runs in the 1 inning, it was mainly due to his hanging sliders. His slider is more of a sweeper, and the lefties hit it hard when it's off. So funny enough, kind of doing his best Christian Scott impression where, you know, throwing to lefties, just no bueno whatsoever, but righties, again, carving up everyone and their mother here. The cutter, more of a gyro slider, was more effective between the 2 pitches. On the changeup that we see here as well for Mr. Brandon Sproat, that's his best pitch right now, which he relied on after getting in trouble with the slider. It is above average speed and good horizontal break. It had a 104 TJ Stuff Plus last night and a 50% whiff rate. So again, that Stuff Plus means that it's right around 4% better than the average pitcher in said league with that pitch. So just something to make note of. Not concerned about Brandon Sproat. That's what my man Isaac has to say. He had to wait over an hour to throw his first pitch due to a rain delay, and AAA is a hitter-friendly environment with juice baseballs and the AB's challenge system. That's the ABS challenge system. And also, let's not forget, this is a Brandon Sproat that probably had some nervous jitters getting the call there at the AAA level. A lot of things not going in his favor, and even then still was able to give the Mets a little bit of length, 4.2 innings, when he got rocked early in this one, giving up the 6 earned runs. You know, he still needs to redefine the slider, refine it a bit, figure out how to utilize both those fastballs, the sinker and the fastball, to make sure that there's enough variation between the two and iron out his command. But again, a lot to be excited about with Mr. Brandon Sproat this season, but the idea that he's a guarantee to be called up this year might not be as much as what Mets fans would hope right now, but is definitely a guy that the Mets will be keeping a very close eye on for the remainder of the season, barring any changes to him and his productivity. And get me over a 98-mile-per-hour fastball. Come on, bring him up. I know, again, he is electric stuff. We all know that. It's just about how soon can a guy in Brandon Sproat be ready to impact the Mets in either the bullpen or potentially the rotation? It's a good question. All I know is I'm looking forward to when Sproat is inevitably up with the Mets, either this or next season. Everybody, that's going to do it here for our segment. I want to know your initial thoughts about the biggest Mets takeaways, biggest Mets updates, rather, in the comments down below whenever this is uploaded, either late night here August 10th or early morning the next day, or the same day technically. We appreciate you guys watching this. If you watch us live, hit that like and subscribe on your way out of the post-game show. If you watch us on replay, thank you all so much. Drop your thoughts down below, and as always, no matter what, let's go Mets, baby. Let's bounce back, hopefully, fingers crossed, do something against Logan Gilbert, which will be far from an easy task. Have a great one, folks. Peace out.